Much has been spoken about what the force for the future should be like. But when I speak on this subject, I would just like to take you back a few years or a few days into history. The conflict in Europe is just about 1100 days old. Much has been spoken about it. If you Google Russia-Ukraine conflict, 11 million articles will pop up. Not all of them speak the same language. Definitely there are contrasting views on every subject. Strategists, journalists, tacticians, logisticians, everybody looks at it from a different angle. The last conversation we had just spoke about drones and how they're changing the character of warfare. If you recollect, in the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Bayraktar drones of Turkey had hit the headlines. They had caused immense damage. But what happened after that? What happened after the first 100 days of the conflict? The discussions on Bayraktar drones disappeared from the war rooms, disappeared even from the bar rooms. Because technology had changed. The air defenses of Russia had developed to an extent where the attrition was so high that you could not speak proudly about owning a Bayraktar drone. The logisticians had analyzed the poor supply chains of the Russians. They discussed how the Russian armored had got stuck short of Kiev because of bad logistics. The same people have gone silent when the Russian special forces went through the gas pipeline 15 kilometers, were supported completely with their logistics chain so that they could fight and win back the territory they lost in Kirks. But amongst all these discussions, what stands out is the use of new age technologies and how these new age technologies are manifesting themselves into changing the character of warfare. So allow me to touch upon a few of these new age technologies and how they will remain in the forefront. If you go back into history, you recollect the first Gulf War. There were 2 or 3 prime technologies which emerged out of the Gulf War. The first, of course, was the usage of the global positioning system, the GPS satellites. The second was the long range communication systems, SATCOM. And the third was the long range cruise missiles, the Tomahawk kind of cruise missiles. So once people started analyzing the Gulf War, every person in uniform, every military in the world made it a part of the must have wish list, that you must have GPS enabled systems, you must have cruise missiles and so on. So at the end of every conflict, the must have list of the armed forces keeps on multiplying itself. The development initially for some of the old timers who've been in service, we were brought up with what is simple command and control, C2 systems. After the Gulf War, what happened? It became C4ISR. Okay, I don't know what is going to come up after a few more years. So what we have to understand is that these technologies not only have presented us with new threats, but with new opportunities also. And it is up to us how to capitalize on the opportunities they present. Here, 2 key technologies have or disruptions that need to be considered. One is data and the second is AI. In terms of military usage, a data-centric approach could be used to develop predictive tools to see how to discuss how the enemy dispositions are going to affect your warfighting capabilities. It is easy to now merge data from different sources, use AI tools to analyze what kind of riposte is required for any kind of a disposition by any adversary. Of course, in the next few years, there will be more revolutionary technologies that will change the character of warfare. Here I would like to now touch upon 3 primary areas: the hardware, the software and the users. It goes without saying that ultimate analysis, it is the merging of these 3, the hardware, the software and the users, that will give you the potential to counter any future adversary. In the realm of hardware, I would like to subdivide it into 4 distinct portions. The first is connectivity. The future of any conflict, as I see it, will focus less on firepower and more on the power of information. Today, information or data is becoming the center of gravity. the ability of any armed force to disrupt the chain of command, to be able to disrupt the connections between the military and the civilian hierarchy in any country will emerge as the winner, not necessarily the country which has larger firepower. The combination of inexpensive sensors that we have today, along with big data analytics, are going to usher in an era where persistent surveillance becomes a norm. It is a thing which everybody will have, and decision making will improve manifold. The point here is that while these technologies give us the edge over an adversary, they will also become important targets. The more the connectivity is seen as a decisive advantage, the other side will seek to disrupt it. They will try to degrade it or disable it. So protection of such decision making systems is also vital. The second aspect after connectivity is lethality. Again, the Gulf War has shown us the lethality of precision weapons launched either through cruise missiles or ballistic missiles or air-launched weapons. What is happening is that the most significant trend today is the growing combination of long-range, high-speed, that is hypersonics was again mentioned just now, and with pinpoint accuracy. Unfortunately, the lessons that we see coming out of the conflict in the Middle East today is that the potential of these weapons does not cater for conflicts in civilian areas. The Israeli Army and the Air Force had equipped themselves largely with accurate weapons, but which create large amount of collateral damage. So now what is the era that we need, or the area that we need to focus on is similar kind of weapons, high speed precision attack with minimal damage, minimal collateral damage that can that can result as in of the weapon, sorry. Now when we talk about offensive weapons, we talk about hypersonics and high speed weapons and improvement to cruise missiles and so on. But at the same time, when we have to look at defensive systems, it is not always economical to have kinetic weapons for defense. You know, the rocket which costs $10,000 fired by the Hamas is countered by one which costs $5 million. The Patriot system, or one of the components of the Iron Dome system. So tackling a kinetic weapon with another kinetic weapon may not be an economical prospect at all. What we need to focus on probably is directed energy weapons, probably laser weapons. It is not, it may not be too far-fetched to look at such kind of weapons filling our inventory in the near future. The next area for hardware is autonomous systems. Much has been spoken about the capability of drones and the way robotics and AI, the combination of this can really influence the future battlefields. Definitely these autonomous systems will bring about a complete change into the future battlefield. Here what we need to accept is that unmanned systems, while they become more cheaper, more capable, more numerous, it is finally going to be the power of swarming of these kind of drones which is going to make a huge impact on any future battlefield. How these swarms of drones communicate with each other, how they independently allow one drone in a swarm to carry out a task is what is going to determine how the future battlefield will shape up. The next part is on Atmanirbharta, which was spoken about at length just now, is the sustainability. Just having an arsenal of this kind of new age technologies is not adequate. Mention was made about the duration of future conflicts. If we have to look at a long drawn conflict, then we need to have the stamina to be able to continue fighting with the weapons that we had in the beginning of a conflict and have the same towards the end of the conflict. So here is where Atmanirbharta is going to play a huge role. Not only capabilities to manufacture components, LRUs, spares and so on, but surge capacities to be able to push the production at much higher rates than what is normal is what is the need of the hour. Here, technologies like additive manufacturing, 3D, people keep bandying these terms that future of conflict depends on AI and 3D printing and quantum and so on. Actually, where can we utilize 3D printing? Is this search capability to be able to build components rapidly, to fill in for spares and so on. So much about hardware. A word or two about the software and where we need to go from. The proliferation of these kind of highly accurate lethal weapons is it does not require any emphasis. The point is that we may no longer require to mass force against force if we have adequate software and adequate new technology weapons. The point here is that the critical enablers that will allow new age technology to be used are going to be your key vulnerability also. So protection of critical information infrastructure is going to be absolutely essential in future. The dual use technologies that are available, including in the realm of space and cyber, are something that we need to capitalize on. Here once again the role of the Indian industry, the MSMEs and the academia is very, very important. There are certain key niche technologies. For example, we talk about swarming or drone swarming. The technology to get those drones together as a swarm is very easily available within our nation, but we need to protect it at all costs. Finally, it seems maybe a little paradoxical, but in a digital era, when we are talking about autonomous systems, when we talk about drones or aircraft being unmanned and being able to take their own decisions, the paradox is that in this digital age, the value of human being is only increasing. The human in the loop, his or her contribution is only going to be enhanced and not diminished. So here, for those in uniform, those serving, we have to realize that training, educating and honing the skills of the human beings, men and women in uniform, is going to be a very essential function. We need to educate leaders in particular about the technology that can be used in the battlefield. We need to make everybody digitally fluent at every level in all the three services. These are definitely not very daunting challenges. They will just require a rethink and understanding of our what we call the professional military education in the armed forces. While the armed forces must be prepared to compete and win in an environment where a force's ability to rapidly make sense of large amounts of data increases effectiveness in future conflict, our networks should remain secure, interoperable, to be able to ensure seamless sharing of data not only within the armed forces but also with the other arms of the government. Here I am confident that the vision and future planning of the armed forces today, most of them being cognizant of these aspects, will definitely steer the armed forces in the right direction. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.